This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas. Magazine publisher and entrepreneur Judith Mancini is sharing captivating conversations with experts in their field about the latest trends in our ever-changing world to help you become healthy, wealthy, and wise. Judith Mancini today will spark your interest and inspire you to lead your best life ever. And now, here's Judith.
Hey, good morning, everyone, and good soon-to-be afternoon, you East Coast people. We are here with some of my very favorite guests, Jeff Bonilla and Charles Moss. Hi, guys.
Good morning.
Hello.
How are you?
How are you?
Don't talk over each other. Go ahead, talk. Let us hear your voices.
We're
Jeff,
good.
Go ahead.
We have a comedy show today, everybody. Okay, this is Jeff Bonilla, and this is Charles Moss.
Hello, everyone.
They are both extraordinarily talented. We're just missing one person that I'd like to have on also for some of the things that we discuss. Her name is Georgie Donovan, and she is responsible for me joining LifeWave, the patches that you put on that just change your life for the best. So, Georgie, we're missing you, but let's get on with these guys with Terminal Hitman. We're going to talk about this after we talk about the State of the Union and the way the world is turning, and if we're going to just fall off into outer space or what the heck is going to happen. Let's start in with what everybody is talking about right now, and that is the government shutdown. Now, I keep hearing that they want to put a lot of money in to give health care, hospitalization, and drugs, prescription drugs, to illegal aliens. We're not even supposed to say those words, illegal aliens.
Well,
But I know, because of knowing people in the medical field, that we already give these people free drugs when they need them. We don't deny them hospital access. And personally, I have seen the women who come across the border from Mexico. Don't get me wrong, I love Mexico. I go frequently. They come by the busload when they are 8.5 months pregnant, and they hang out so that they can go in and have their babies here. There's two reasons. One, they get better maternal and baby care. And two, their children are born on U.S. soil, so they become citizens automatically. So that's one of my objections of saying that we need to give them more free things. I think they need to become citizens. What say you guys?
well, the birthright citizenship has been a problem for years, of what they call anchor babies. And like you brought up a good point as so far as women coming over pregnant and then having their child in American hospital. My wife, she was a labor and delivery nurse, so she saw this constantly in the San Francisco Bay Area specifically. And they had so many programs that the nursing staff would be required to provide free diapers, car seats, strollers, postpartum care, and things of that nature. And it's not so much the humanitarian aspect of making sure a newborn is healthy. I think everybody could agree on that. You want life to continue and be healthy and happy. But where she found it real problematic is when they came in with the demands. And it really would irritate her. They would be very demanding, condescending to the hospital staff. Not all of them, of course. I don't want to paint a broad brush, but
well, no, but I understand what you're saying. My daughter was, for the first part of her nursing career as a registered nurse also, she was in the new baby section. So she was getting the babies that your wife was working on delivering and all. And she once had a woman who said to her, "Oh, this is my fourth child. I come here all the time to have my babies." And
yes.
this had become a real problem. This was in the Santa Barbara area up there in almost central California. So it's not rare that this happens. I don't see it happening in any other state, quite frankly, because they can't get to Ohio or Pennsylvania in the middle of the country to do it. So we border states have had this problem for a long time.
Yes, exactly. Especially California, because California is very pervasive in providing what do they call it, the social nets for everybody else but.
Right, exactly. So what do you say, Jeff, about the health care for the illegal immigrants coming across and just keeping them here forever and not making them go home? And the problem with ICE supposedly raiding places, I don't know if that's true. I've not been there personally. ICE, I've not seen anything really where they're beating anybody up yet. I haven't seen it on any news, but I know there's a problem and a lot of people are against it because some of the men that ICE is going after have been here for years and learned skills. Their fathers and mothers were here. They worked in the valley with a food bowl that we provide from California. And there's others that have worked when I lived in Beverly Hills, they were the people who worked in the car washes and things like that, the restaurants and all. They work all over and they're good, they're skilled, and they will take a less wage than citizens. What do you think about this? I mean, I'm kind of torn, to tell you the truth, because some of them I really like. I like the idea of it. I don't know any personally.
Yeah, it is one of those. It's definitely up for debate. I don't know personally because they supposedly are. ICE is supposedly going after criminals, which I'm fine with.
Me too.
But you hear the other stories, so I don't know how true the other stories. I mean, within my little world, we actually do know, like, as you said, quite a few people that have learned skills and, they're great people. We know them and some come work, with us on whatever it may be, whether it's somebody we know has been here many years and, they're really crafted or become very skilled at, whether it's, carpentry or whatever it may be. Right.
Right.
And, and they're good people. So that is, you're right. There's a little bit of that sort of fine line. I think it's just if it's when people start taking advantage of a system that's been put in place to help, but then they start, as Charles said, maybe making demands or taking advantage of those situations. But on the other side of it, I had a friend of mine who for a while was out of work down in LA. So she went to one of those bars, like those strip bars or what have you. And, where they would just dance while people listened to music and stuff. And she said a lot of the clientele there were undocumented men, and they would just have tons of money and they would, throw it up and they'd make fun and say things like, you Americans are so stupid, like, in other words, bragging about how they were getting paid under the table, how much money they made. and how, our system is so stupid because they were taking advantage of it.
Well, I can see that too. And against all of the cartels sending people in here that are taking advantage of our kids and adults, even with the drugs that they're bringing with them and all, and forcing them to traffic in the drugs. So it's a big question.
I'll give you a quick story once. I'm not even sure if I should, but years ago, I had a friend who was he was a defense attorney, and his clients somehow ended up becoming some of the cartel people. And I remember being at his place one time when this guy shows up at the door, unassuming guy, just of Mexican descent, and he welcomes him, and he comes in and says, "I'll be right back." And I'm sitting on a couch. He goes to the back, and he comes out with a giant garbage bag, and he takes the garbage bag and he dumps it, and wads and wads of money pour out on the table. And I'm like, wow, that's weird. And then he says, "Hey, Jeff, would you help us count this?" So I'm okay. So I start counting it, but I'm beginning to think, okay, this could be troublesome, right? But I didn't want to make a big deal. And the guy just looked like a normal guy. He wasn't like, threatening looking or anything. Counted it up. He took his stuff and he left. And I go, "What the hell was that?" He goes, "That is one of the top cartel guys." That I go, "What are you doing with money?" He goes, "It was a test to make sure that they could trust me as their lawyer, and I wouldn't be taking money from them, stealing from them."
Wow.
I was like, dude, like, what if he was followed? Like, we could have been on the floor with shotguns in our faces.
No kidding.
He's like, nah. Well, a few years later, that did happen to him when, and he ended up on the floor with a shotgun in his head. And
he went bye-bye.
He eventually said, no, he got out of it from my remember, but he did say he was going to go back to just doing the drunk driving defenses.
If they let him. I mean, that's, I think, one of the problems is once you get involved with a cartel, they're not real happy if you decide to leave, no matter what position you're in.
That's true. Yeah, I do remember that. It probably, that story has nothing to do, I guess, with what we're talking about, but it is.
Well, it sort of does. It involves ICE now. Because for years, none of us did anything, at least in the state of California. And it goes back to Reagan and how he gave them amnesty to become citizens. Mm-hmm. And before that, all this went on. And I will admit, I took my housekeeper and I taught her to read in English and all, and I went with her to become a citizen. But that was amnesty. I mean, this was just a way of living for everybody. And contrary to what a lot of people think, we didn't take advantage of the people working here. We paid them a decent wage so that they could make a living and keep their children here and send them to public schools and with the health and all of that. They wanted to be citizens. And one of our problems is, I've heard it takes over 20 years to get your citizenship in today's day and age. Well, what is that all about? You take a pledge to the country, you have to learn about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and I don't know, can we? Shouldn't we be taking those people that are our neighbors and are mostly good neighbors? Because plenty of us love to go to Mexico. We love to go to the resorts or meet people down there, rent houses down there. Are we destroying somebody that lives so close to us, and we allow people from the Middle East and China to go to school here and then become citizens? And then we find out they're spies? I can guarantee these people in Mexico are not spying for our scientific secrets. They're trying to make a living and live.
No, I agree. I think, I think that, like I said, if it's about the criminals, that's one thing. But if you start dragging, your housekeeper or somebody off, their husband or somebody, that's different, I think.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
It's a very complex issue.
It is
And
complex.
there's a lot of moving parts and things that we don't, as citizens, we understand or know, because it's a real geopolitical issue. But you always hear that we need to find a pathway to citizenship for people immigrating, and America is a bread bowl, or what do they say that we're built on immigration, obviously. To me, one of the worst things that I think the United States did was to get rid of I'll call it the Ellis Island approach of citizenship. And Ellis Island, I think, was shut down in the mid 1950s, and my grandparents came through
I
Ellis.
don't know. My husband is here. Did you go through Ellis Island? Lewis?
Yeah.
My husband came over when he was 13, and he's 80 now, and he did go through Ellis Island.
Yeah, so I believe Ellis Island shut down like in the mid 1950s.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
And and when people, and I could only speak from my grandparents' experience. They're long since deceased, and they came over in the early 1900s. But when they entered Ellis Island, they went through a health inspection.
Yes.
And there was for the time, they did somewhat background inspections. They checked their papers and whatever they would bring. They would check their luggage. And then if there was any illnesses, there would be a quarantine centers at Ellis Island. And then when they were allowed to enter New York or what have you, they had to state a place that they were going to go. And what type of job skills they brought with them. And then they were given a pathway to citizenship as naturalized citizens.
Exactly.
And, granted, we can't apply the technologies or the way we did things back in the early 20th century to today. But, they should implement another Ellis Island project. And on the West Coast, I believe it was through, not Treasure Island, but Yerba Buena Island.
Oh, down by San Diego.
No. Well, they're actually in the San Francisco Bay. I can't think of the island. It's near Alcatraz. It's
Okay.
many hats, but for the Chinese that came in to help build the railroads, and so I agree with both premises. There needs to be a better way for immigration, and the processes are there. But I think because it's so corrupt and so dirty now, that politicians don't truly want to fix the problem for these migrant workers that are doing jobs that most Americans, quite honestly, are too lazy to do, unfortunately. So I agree. We need to focus on the bad seeds in society that are coming across the border, and the everyday people that want to make a better life. We need to make a system where they could openly come in and start a process and get in line and not cut the line. So that's kind of my 2 cents.
Well, kind of the three of us are pretty much in agreement that this needs to be worked on.
Yeah.
But I don't think you can get senators and Congress people to work on it if they've never even experienced living someplace where this is going on. They have no idea what's going on.
Well, there's behind the scene money.
Yes. And I think Newsom is a good example of that.
Oh, absolutely. It's whatever you have projection and gaslighting on both sides.
Yes.
And I think the left has taken gaslighting and projection to a whole different level from my viewpoint. But
that's my viewpoint too. How about you, Jeff?
Yeah, it was just last night having a little conversation with the Grok, the AI. And trying to find out if Newsom was the Antichrist.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a book. That has to be a book.
I know. Absolutely. Well, what did
Well,
you
Grok was actually comparing biblical passages, to I presented a few different people, and it was comparing like their political rise compared to beliefs and theologians' beliefs and Bible passages, and it was really interesting because I kept adding people to the stack. And then I said, okay, Grok, if you had to bet on who might be the Antichrist, out of these characters that we're talking about, who's your money on? And he goes, haha, Jeff, I would not bet, but in theory, if I
This is
could.
getting to be crazy.
It was pretty funny. So I kind of went through the list of Trump and
What'd they say about it?
I think I had Trump, Obama, and one of the European leaders, and then I threw in Gavin Newsom. And the reason it did say if I had to bet it would be Trump, only because there's that passage in the Bible about the demon having a near death by a strike to the head, but surviving it.
I've heard these things also.
Yeah, it's really, and then there's all this numerology stuff that goes into it, but it was very interesting. But I don't, I just think it kind of funny.
There again, we people that believe in a lot of these different things, we all agree on them. I just want to add this from our studio chat, our great engineer, Juan, who always gets us on screen on time and just helps me so much with everything that I don't understand. He says, depends on your home country. This is talking about immigration and becoming a citizen. Depends on your home country. I've heard Spanish countries can take 20 plus years, while some Asian countries can take as little as 6 months. Depends on that country's backlog of cases being processed. And that's exactly what I'm saying about the ones that they send to college and university and things like that. And they're fast-tracked from the Asian countries. And then we find out they're spies. So,
where I live, when we moved out to I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area in a small town that's close to the airport, 40,000 people.
Burlingame?
Yeah, and the town next to us is the same. Well,
I don't know where you live. I was guessing.
Well, it's a good guess. Burlingame.
Oh,
that is where I live.
I used to live up there when I was first married 100,000 years ago.
Oh, okay. So you're familiar with the area, but back then it was relatively, completely Caucasian, the demographics, and now it's completely Asian. I mean, there's no more. All the businesses are Chinese owned. Well, even the signs outside all the stores, like if you go down to Broadway, they're all Chinese now.
That's very true. And that's the same as Glendale and Pasadena down here in Southern California. And Lou, my husband, was turning this company around in Michigan, and we lived in Michigan for a while. There are places in Michigan, in the Detroit area and the surrounding area, no sign is in English. It's all in Arabic or something else. You can't even read them. And it's Muslim law, Sharia law. There's one little township, I'll call it, that has Sharia law, and Sharia law is pretty different from any law that we have. I mean, you can still stone your daughter to death if you think she's been with a man. I mean, it's craziness.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the solution is, because we're a country that does love immigrants to come in and love our country like we do. So I don't know. I mean, my daughter's thinking of moving to Mexico because it's getting to be so wacky up in the Santa Barbara area, just with crime and different things. And I'm not saying it's the immigrants or anything else. It's just, it's changing. And so many areas have these unique little enclaves of very wealthy people. For instance, the Prince Harry and his wife live up in Montecito in a great big huge place. So our country is really kind of whacked out right now, in my opinion. Let's move on to something else. Let's talk about the shootings that have been happening. This is kind of up your alley, being law enforcement guys. I am appalled at the number of shootings that are taking place, and so many of the perpetrators are in their early 20s. What do you think's going on? I mean, we could talk about Charlie Kirk too. What happened to him, and the person who shot President Trump? And what I want to know is, why haven't we heard any more about that perp's background and who might have been helping him, and why they didn't see him up there when regular people that were at the rally could see him on the roof? What is going on? Do you think they're hiding things with these people? And the one who just shot up the church, and one shot up a synagogue, and one shot up Mormons, Catholics. It doesn't seem to matter if they're just religious places or schools. What's going on?
I'll start really quick. I think anytime you have an assassination attempt, on a political figure, first when you see all the people they've assassinated, there's always somebody that's trying to do something good for the people. They don't want the status quo to change, and it's always an inside job, and the FBI always runs cover for them. I don't know why it is, but that's what the FBI has become.
Well, I think it has become. Do you think it'll get straightened out?
No, I don't think so. I have not seen anything getting straightened out with the FBI. I'm really disappointed in Kash Patel and Bongino, and those guys are not doing nothing. They're running cover once again. And I think it's because if they maybe they do know what's going on, and when you realize what's going on, they're going, God, we can't disclose this.
Well, I like both those guys, but I have to say, I think Dan Bongino has really tried more to turn things around in the FBI, but he's kind of been slapped down.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. I think it's just so corrupt now that two men can't go in there and try to change things, because they've been doing this for decades. And like I said, we're never going to know what really happened, but I can assure you all the incidents like with Charlie Kirk and, President Trump, they have inside help. It's not just something that's, taking place by one lone individual like they always
It can't be. I can't see any of them being the lone assassin. No. Because there's too much planning going on and too much information about where the president is sitting in the stadium and where Charlie was sitting and how easy it would be from his location to assassinate Charlie. And that was quite a distance, and he shot him right here. I mean, that was spot on for an assassination. Don't you think?
I've heard a lot of different things about it's hard to know, because we don't have the view of what it looked like to be on that rooftop and what the clearance, what the view was into that tent, so it's hard to know like what's going on. There's a lot of, there's so many people doing the commentary, on social media, showing different clips and all that. And I will say there is something strange about it. And there's a lot of professionals, I'll tell you, like the caliber they say and they use, there's no way, because it would have, completely obliterated him and blown his head off or whatever. And I think there's truth to that, but I've seen a few different angles. There is something weird. My initial thought was that maybe, and see, nobody's talked about it. Like, was Charlie wearing a vest? Was he not wearing? Because there's been incidents where, because to me, it seems like this part kind of gets hit first and blows up and goes upwards like this.
Right.
My instinct was that he got hit here and it ricocheted into his neck.
Traveled up. Yeah.
That's what, and there's been a lot of cops that have been killed by that, because they get hit in the vest, and if there's a steel plate or a steel rib right there, the bullet can ricochet into the neck. And so the bulletproof vest that we had back in the day had a steel plate until they started having more incidents with that happening, and he took the steel plate out, and they really, came up with a different form of soft body armor. But some of those still have little rivets in there. So that's to me looked like, okay, if it was that round, maybe it did hit something. even, we don't know what round it was because they're not disclosing it. It could have been a smaller round, could have hit him in the clavicle and bounced, and ricocheted. There's a lot of things, but people are talking about, explosive devices. And, there is a point when one angle I looked at it, it looks like there's the battery pack for his lavalier that explodes and shoots a projectile into his neck.
That could happen too, very easily.
Yeah, I know that, and I don't know, I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, but I know that there was an incident where a bunch of pagers blew up recently, that were all set up with bombs. So, who knows? I don't know, but I do know they're covering, and it does sound like the guy they have might be a patsy. That's
Well, that's what I'm beginning to think. And a lot of these things, here we moved, it's been 2 years, we've been down here in the desert. And I'm thinking this is a pretty quiet place. I mean, it's really quiet. And I woke up one morning and there was the bomb squad and all these FBI guys and everybody else. They'd gone to this perp went to a fertility clinic and shot it up. Fortunately, nobody was killed, but there were bomb techs out there and everything else. This is craziness. What are they trying to do? I mean, they're making statements, but is there some kind of, I hate to say it, George Soros group that is getting people to join to do these different incidents all over the country that are little, and this is a prelude to something really big with like a civil war type thing within the country?
Well, there's definitely funding with a lot of these radical groups, like you mentioned George Soros with his Open Society. But, there's also foreign money coming in. There's no doubt in my mind that, foreign governments, whether, it be China or, some people say Israel or some other Venezuela, through Maduro and the drug money, the drug cartels, chaos creates opportunities for the people that live below the border. And I'm not saying border meaning.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Below the norms of society. And I wouldn't even be surprised if media outlets are funding some of these people because
they want to be
sex and violence sells.
Yep.
There's definitely partisan polarization and media amplification of all of these events because it sells copy. So
exactly.
People are easily influenced. I mean, you forget, especially when you're young, it's not too difficult to brainwash people, and it does happen. And then, when you got a mainstream media that for, 10 years has been saying this guy's Hitler, or, he's an existential threat to society, some people get brainwashed and may think, well, I'm going to be a hero and, stop this person. I find it interesting still that CNN, hated Trump with a passion. They never covered his events. Yet at Butler, they decided for the first time ever, they're going to cover the rally. Why? Because they knew, they were tipped off. That's why we know it's an inside job. If CNN knew that he was going to be assassinated, they wanted their cameras there so they could repeat.
That's right. And is it the same people who didn't prevent the camera crews from getting into Mar-a-Lago when they raided Mar-a-Lago? They knew ahead of time. CNN finally admitted they sent them out there.
Yeah, Roger Stone, when he got swatted, got arrested, they knew.
His poor wife, who's nearly blind and was going to the bathroom, and they pull her out. It's disgusting.
Yeah. Once again, FBI.
Well, the media wants the propagation of controversy and conspiracies.
Right. They don't have anything else to do.
Yeah.
It's not exciting enough for them.
Well, Charles, I'll let you maybe speak to this, but, given the fact that we're, former law enforcement and we took an oath, we're disgusted with law enforcement. Would you agree on that?
A lot, yes.
Yeah, in many ways, I'm part of a lot of retiree groups, and this topic does come up in discussion where, well, how do I want to frame this? So
I know.
traditionally, law enforcement was a big group was recruited through the military. So you have people that have always believed in the Constitution, the true justice, the American way mindset. And it seems today that the Constitution is a little bit of an afterthought. And I use this term with Jeff all the time, that a lot of people go into the profession now with pension over principles. They're looking at, the golden goose egg at the end, the financial stability. And I don't really think they care so much about the oath that they took and the mission statement. And so whatever the political winds of change, you're just going to blindly follow. And in my local police department, I have to admit, I absolutely have an aversion to them because they are heavy-handed boot jacks. And
I think that came up in the 60s. I think that's when they started changing, before you had families, that everybody was in law enforcement or everybody was in the fire department, something like that. And there was a lot of pride in it. But then, as you say, it changed around to the golden age for retirement or, trying to move up in life. And then they got all these movies and books and things where you had the crooked guy on the force trying to manipulate everything. And it's very sad. And when I was first married in the 60s, I had to think when my first husband, I got married, 68, 69, we knew a lot of people in law enforcement, not so many in the fire department, but we had a lot of policemen around where we lived. And they were very proud of it, but you could see it as it changed over the years. They were becoming disgruntled with the guys that were up the ladder from them and becoming bosses and really vying to become the captain, and things kind of changed.
Yeah, and I could only speak for the agency that I work for, but I think it is pretty indicative that the promotional process, once people get in their power, what they do is they build their little fiefdoms.
Yes.
They want to surround themselves, so we'll go with like a chief of police. He's going to cherry pick the people that they're not going to be a threat to their policies or their own power. And they're going to uplift those that follow the same philosophies. And anybody that questions it or maybe pushes against it because they don't see the value in the policy or maybe see it a different way, those officers get pushed down.
Yeah.
And they're castigated as troublemakers or malcontents or what have you. And so what does that do? It breeds complacency and mediocrity. Some people will say, well, if they're not valuing my voice, why should I work harder? Why should I
put my life on the line if I'm not going to,
Exactly. So I'll sit in the proverbial, donut shop and, I'll answer my calls, but I'm not going to be proactive because what's the point? Hey, the media's going to go after me. My administration's going to go after me. The politicians are going to go after me. All I want to do is do the right thing, and I want to go home alive to my family. Well, all those incentives for somebody to actually, I'm kind of lost for a word here, but they're calling, to help society. All those incentives are gone. So it's like, okay, well, in 20 years, I get to retire and I'm going to get a nice pension. So I'm just going to hide while I can. and that's a shame.
I don't know if you two know this, but I was a reserve deputy sheriff in Orange County
I remember that. Yeah.
when I was young. I already told you the story. I didn't like having to go kind of spy on my fellow officers, and I quit because it wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. I wanted it to be one of the good guys, good girls, and it was very different. So I quit. Anyway, that's my law enforcement, but I can shoot a gun still to this day. So don't mess with me. Now, I just want to get to this before we run out of time here, because this is an amazing book. And why I want you all to read it is because we often talk about the pharmaceutical companies, big pharma, medical things. We're all into health, good health. This is an amazing book that addresses all of this. And it's turn it fast. You want to know what else is happening. Where do you guys come up with some of these ways to deal with these horrible characters that are poisoning us in the pharmaceutical companies and all? Where do you come up with these ideas?
We're twisted.
Yeah, we're pretty twisted. Yeah.
Okay, so you guys are twisted, but tell the people that this is number one on the different sections of it. Talk about your book for a little bit.
So it's the continuation of a first book that I wrote a couple years back. The new one is called Terminal Hitman: State of Deception, and the premise is that holistic doctors are dying mysteriously, but it turns out that there's a pharmaceutical hit squad that's killing them because they don't want the holistic practices to get into their profits, their constant cycle of keeping people sick and never actually curing cancer. So the premise actually came to me from an actual person who's in that field. And she was the one who told me and made me aware that this was really happening. And I did some research.
It's true. Yes, that part is definitely true. A lot of doctors were killed.
Yeah, it turns out doctors are being mysteriously killed or dying or committing suicide in weird ways that didn't make any sense, especially when you're a cop and you realize, no, that's not a suicide, that's a murder. Then they're all holistic doctors, groups of them. And that's the premise for the book. So it's kind of based in reality. And then we took a lot of the other conspiracy theories that are out there, the depopulation, the transhumanism, the hybrid hornets that supposedly Bill Gates is making. So we took a lot of that and we just said,
it's really scary.
We just thought, let's see if we can throw the kitchen sink into this and still somehow make it make sense. So it's there's multiple villains in it, and the thing about it, it's not your typical former, military guy or a CIA guy. It's just like a normal guy and his friends that get caught up in this because he has cancer and he goes to be cured in Costa Rica, and then his doctor mysteriously dies and he starts looking into it, and that's when he discovers the pharma hit squad. So it kind of goes from Costa Rica all the way to the halls of power in Washington, D.C., where you got corrupt senators, corrupt FBI. It's kind of a reflection of what we're all going through, whether we believe it or not, but the whispers are out there. And so we just try to tie it all together and make it fun, but at the same time, cause people to think a little bit. And maybe they'll do a little bit of research and find out that, this is not so far from the truth.
I like the book because, I've liked all your books that I've read, but I like this book in particular because I'm very familiar with what was going on in Big Pharma and the holistic doctors being killed. But this is a book for men or women to read. Women will enjoy it also. There's great sexy scenes in it. There's adventure on the highway. There's just all sorts of things going on. And it really is a good book to read. So how do you two split up the writing part? Do you write together? Do you sit down together? What do you do to write it?
Should I tell her the secret, Jeff?
Just remember, you're telling it to thousands of people.
Okay, thousands of people. My writing process, I take a shower. And all of a sudden, ideas populate in my head. And the joke is I'll call Jeff up and I'll say, Jeff, I just took a shower. And he'll go, oh no. Oh no. Here comes 5 more chapters. Oh no.
And what do you do, Jeff?
Well, I was taking showers too. That's weird. And I had mentioned that to him, and then it started happening to him where ideas would pop in our head. But as far as collaborating together, sometimes we write together, which is a lot of fun because.
Do you two live close by each other?
No, we don't.
No.
But we'll also work off of like a document, where both of us can access it at the same time. But yeah, a lot of it's just he may write like a couple of chapters and then I'm, send them over to me and vice versa. So the thing is, we've known each other about, I don't know, 50 years, a long time. And our brains.
Were you guys friends from law enforcement, or were you neighbors at one time? How did you guys get together?
We were friends actually since right before college. We met in Lake Tahoe, and we just kind of hit it off, and we had our warped sense of humor, and we ended up going to the police academy together, and we remained friends. And we truly do have like a brain that thinks alike, because sometimes we'll start to say something and the other person will finish it and go, yeah, I know where you're going with this. You're going to want to do this. And, we have a very twisted sense of humor. Yeah.
Where were you in Lake Tahoe?
Carnelian Bay. And we met at a Pee Wee golf course in Carnelian Bay. And we were both, his family and the group of people I was up there with, we were all staying in Agate Bay, which is, right next. It's on North Shore.
I know it well. I raised my kids for several years in Incline Village.
Oh yeah, very cool. And then we found out that we both had graduated in the June prior. I think we met in July, shortly after Jeff's birthday. And then we found out we were both going to go to College of San Mateo Junior College before moving on to 4-year.
Wow.
And then we exchanged phone numbers. How that kind of happens, we ran into each other at CSM, and we found out we both have similar taste in music, similar taste in different type of events, obviously girls too at the time, similar clothing styles, and yeah.
Cool. Well, you guys are my favorite guests. I hope you come back again, because I still want to talk about why we don't know more about the drones. Kind of stopped talking about them, didn't they? So thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing Terminal Hitman with us. Jeff, tell them which ones were number one on which sections. Number one in...
Yeah, when it debuted on it, we went to number one in medical thrillers on hot new releases, and we broke into top 10 on conspiracy theories or conspiracy thrillers, and a couple other categories were in the, we charted. So it was pretty cool. Not anymore, because
very cool.
But but it's a great book. It's on Amazon, and
there's only one thing wrong with it. It's not signed by you.
We can take care of that, but we appreciate that you got it online.
Absolutely. Okay, thanks guys for coming on today. I'm cutting it off. I'm really giving Juan a hard time here. I'm sorry, Juan. Don't forget, I'm in LifeWave business, and these patches will turn your lives around. If you have any aches and pains, you have any stress, just overall energy and well-being. And with the stress we have today, you better join LifeWave and order some Eon patches, which will take care of all your stress. At least it did for me. And we have sleeping patches for silent nights. And I had a horrible time sleeping after my son passed away, took his own life. I put those little sleep silent night things on my foot, and I finally have gotten some rest. So thanks for coming on, Jeff and Charles. We'll do it again. There's my lifewave.com email on the bottom. Check it out so you can see everybody knows about LifeWave. So get on track. Thanks for coming, guys.
Thank you.
Cherish
Thank you.
yesterday, dream tomorrow, and live today. Bye.